Hey, Pretty Girl Club. Welcome back to the Pretty Privilege series. I literally just woke up and I'm just drinking my chlorophyll water right now. And I was thinking about how some women get mad because those women have no reason to be beautiful. And by the way, this is going to be a part of the Pretty Privilege series, but the reason women get mad at you is because they don't have a reason to have pretty privilege. Also, have you ever noticed that when a woman is ugly as fuck, the only thing she can try to flex on you is her lifestyle? Have you ever been around a Dustisha at work and she's ugly, she's bad built, her breath stinks, her teeth are yellow, and she has so much shit to say? She's constantly bragging about how much more money she has than you. And it's like, ma'am, I would rather be gorgeous and broke than be a fucking billionaire and be ugly on the inside and out. And I say this all the time. If I had to choose between wealth and beauty, I feel like it's easier to attain wealth than it is to attain beauty. Well, actually, I'll just say it's easier to get more money than it is to attain beauty because think about it. Women who are unattractive, even if those women are richer than you, those women have to spend tens of thousands of dollars trying to become beautiful. They have to spend tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, fixing their nose, fixing their lips. They have to fix their chin. They got to get a boob job. They got to do their BBL, whatever. So it's like, ma'am, you're over here trying to brag, saying that you're so much richer than pretty women and like all of us are just pretty and dumb. And oh, we're still broke. Okay, but there are so many pretty women who are able to use their beauty to get out of poverty. And also, it's hilarious how Dustishas, they make everything a competition. So they put you in a random beauty competition with them. They put you in a wealth competition with them. So there's always some Dustisha who wants to brag about how her car is nicer than yours and her bags and her shoes, all of her clothes are just so much better than yours. And it's like, yeah, you have something to prove, Dustisha. So that's why you feel the pressure to do all these high car payments and you feel pressure to wear all these expensive designer clothes and shoes because you have something to prove. You don't have the beauty, you don't have the face card, and so you have to try to wear the beautiful clothes. You have to wear the beautiful bag. The bag is beautiful, not your face. You couldn't swing it when it came to your face card. You didn't have the pretty privilege that you wanted. And so you're using designer clothing and you're using cars and shoes as a coping mechanism. Has anybody noticed that? Whenever you're the pretty girl, if somebody can't come for your face card, they can't come for your body, they can't come for your hair texture, hair length, etc. So the first thing they come for is, oh, well, your clothes are cheap. Oh, well, you're not rich. Well, you're not a millionaire. Well, I have more money than you. What good is the money if you still look like shit? What good is the money if your life is still dusty? Looking bad and looking like you have neglected yourself, that is not going to help you when it comes to your wealth privilege. So it's like, even if a Dustisha does have more money than you, well, she didn't do a good job because her teeth are still yellow, acne is still flared up, her edges are still snatched out. She still has cankles and goiters and stretch marks and cellulite. So it's like, ma'am, you have way more problems than what I have. If I had to choose, I would rather be middle class and gorgeous and stunning than to be wealthy and then I've neglected myself for so long and I literally look like I got ran over by a bus. No. And a lot of women, what they do is they try to create a hierarchy. It's always the women who don't have beauty. They want to create a hierarchy out of everything else. So they'll be like, oh, well, you may be pretty, but guess what? I's married now. I'm married. You're pretty, but guess what? You're still single. You couldn't get a man. I noticed that's something else that people will use against pretty privileged women who are just minding their business. They'll be like, oh, well, no man chose you. Well, you still went through a breakup. Well, you still got cheated on. And it's like, okay, all you're doing is revealing what you feel pretty privilege is for. If you were as pretty as me, you would be the one that jumps into a marriage. If you looked like me, you would run into a man's arms. You would jump into a relationship. You would jump into a marriage. Oh, well, you may be pretty, but you're not a supermodel. Okay, so you're admitting that if you looked like me, you would immediately become a supermodel. Thank you for the compliment. Thank you for proving my exact point. And it's always somebody that secretly wants to trade lives with you, those are the main ones who compare themselves to you, by the way. They always have this talking point of, if I were you, I would have done XYZ. And it's like, ma'am, you're not me. Look, I know that you wish you were me. I know that you're living vicariously through me. I know that you're spying on me or whatever, or being a monitoring spirit because ultimately you wish you had my life, but you're not me. Anybody who's a monitoring spirit over your life, that person wishes they were you. You know how they talk about destiny swapping? Okay, that bitch couldn't destiny swap. She can't manifest shit. All this talk about spirituality. I see so many Dustishas talking about spiritual stuff online. They'll talk up and down about karma and their ancestors, and they'll talk about how they're the blueprint, their ancestors are going to get you. They swear up and down that they're going to do all this hoodoo and voodoo. They want to try to like analyze your astrology sign and shit. They swear that they're so powerful, and it's like, ma'am, you didn't even have the power to brush your teeth. You didn't even have the power to grow your edges. So I'm supposed to be scared of your spiritual power? You couldn't even manifest hair past shoulder length. You're walking around with your hair in old dusty braids that have been matted and tangled. Your shit is filled with dandruff right now. You need to stop worrying about me. You need to worry about all that buildup on your scalp. That's what you need to be worrying about. So it's like you literally have these women in the workplace or just in general, they're monitoring your life. These are women where maybe they have kids that they've abandoned, they have they have addiction issues, they're pick me's, it's like you need to worry about your 50-50 relationship. Why are you worried about somebody pretty at work? Why are you bragging and saying, oh, well, she may be pretty, but she's broke? There are many different forms of abundance. There's more than one form of wealth. Like a lot of wealth is actually created from opportunities. Most people are not born into wealth. So just because somebody is middle class and they're pretty, or maybe they're working as like a receptionist or whatever, that doesn't mean that their future is destined to be the same way. And see, that's the thing about being pretty. I feel like when you meet your internalized beauty standard, it gives you a sense of hope for the future. Because we know that this world worships beauty. This world pedestalizes beauty. So you already have a pedestal right there. You're an exotical, you got that pedestal going for yourself, and you already have beauty. So the women who don't have either one of those are the main ones who will try to use money as a flex. There's always going to be a jealous woman who tries to find a gap in your lifestyle. She's going to look at whatever you don't have, and she's going to be like, oh, well, yeah, that's why you couldn't get a man. You couldn't keep a man. Oh, well, you're still single. Oh, well, you're not even rich anyway. Well, why are you driving that car? Your car's not new. I have a newer car than you. And it's like, ma'am, you have more debt than me. What are you talking about? Imagine bragging about having high car payments and being in more debt. I'm not stupid. And then the same people that try to brag about how wealthy they are, it's like, sis, what is your standard for wealth? Because last time I checked, having a high car payment, that doesn't make you wealthy, ma'am. Having a $5,000 bag, that also does not prove that you're wealthy. That just proves that you're a consumer. All that does is prove that you're a hyper consumer. You practice overconsumption, and I've noticed that women with inferiority complexes, they tend to use overconsumption to cope with the fact that they're unattractive. That's what it is. Oh, I'm ugly, so let me spend $10,000 on some shoes. Okay, well, let me buy some red bottoms then. I don't have a face card, so let me buy these $1,000 shoes that will get me attention because my face can't get me any attention. Because remember, with everything you do in this life, you are seeking some form of power. So the Dustisha who is hating on you and she's bragging about her wealth, well, she is seeking power via wealth, but she's too dumb to realize that having a designer bag does not make you wealthy. Having a designer shoe, that doesn't make you wealthy. Having a fancy car doesn't make you wealthy. Living in a nice neighborhood doesn't even make you wealthy. Also, what are the standards for wealth? And when it comes to women online, it's like they have so much to say, but they don't ever help their actual subscribers to attain that wealth. It's like, okay, if you're so leveled up, you're so wealthy and rich, and then all of the exoticals are just broke and ugly and we're not pretty or whatever. Okay, then why can't you help all your subscribers to attain that wealth then? Why aren't you giving them all the wealth strategies then, since you got it all figured out? But I want to talk about how a lot of women, they are not pretty privileged because they have no reason to be beautiful. They really don't. And by the way, the reason that I talk about pretty privilege on this channel is because I feel like as exoticals, we're automatically viewed as pretty privileged by a lot of people. And I also feel like we have the right to be as beautiful as we want, just like anyone else. So it's like I have the right to be as cute as I want. I have the right to express my femininity however I see fit. My beauty is an expression of my femininity. My body is like a canvas. I get to decorate my body however I want. It's my body, my choice. Why is it that in every other area we say, oh, it's my body, my choice. But suddenly, when it's an exotical, suddenly, when it's somebody who's already privileged and then she also wants to be pretty, suddenly, oh no, you're not allowed to wear tight jeans because you're being a Jezebel. Oh no, you can't wear weaves. That means you hate yourself. You can't wear blonde highlights because you hate yourself. No, people are moving the goalposts when it comes to exoticals because they are threatened by the power that our beauty can attain for us. That's what it is. And by the way, I do think that each different type of beauty has a different level of power and it has a different type of like benefit to it. So, for example, some women they have social media pretty privilege. So these are the beauty influencers. These are the hair influencers. Other women they have pageant pretty privilege. So these are the women who compete in like Miss America and all that. Other women have like a corporate type of pretty privilege. So they look pretty in the workplace. They look very professional. They're a real estate girl. They're able to make sales because of their beauty. They work at the makeup counter. They work in direct sales in some capacity. So I think that a lot of women, they don't have a reason to be beautiful. Also, they suffer from decision fatigue. Like, they haven't decided what kind of pretty privilege they want and why. And I've noticed that with women who have inferiority complexes, generally speaking, their beauty standard is revolved around the male gaze. You know, so they want beauty so they can attain a man and so they can attain wealth. And then the way that they want to attain wealth is through the man, of course. Because I've noticed that with women who have inferiority complexes, a man represents the solution to all of her problems. Because think about it, who do you see the most? What group of women, what ethnic group of women, what skin tones, what phenotypes, what age, what types of women on YouTube make the most content about how to get a man, why you can't get a man? They're doing all these live stream calls, asking each other what to wear so they can go out and try to attract a man. And then they tend to steal talking points from exoticals like Shira7 or myself or other women. They steal other people's talking points and then they figure out a way to make it male centered. So when it comes to Dustishas, their standard is when you're pretty, the whole goal of being pretty is so you can get a man. That should be the reason you're being pretty. The whole reason you're pretty is so you can get a man, have his baby, and then you get wealthy off of the child support from having this man's baby. Or, you know, you have to be pretty so you can attract some rich guy to come and save you from your own financial failures. That is the average mindset of women with inferiority complexes. Also, you can tell that those women are from the ghetto because they have magical thinking when it comes to wealth. And, you know, if you're from the ghetto, that's fine, no shade or whatever. But it's like, ma'am, you're from the ghetto. Why are you trying to act like you're an expert on being in the suburbs or being from the suburbs or being around wealth or growing up around wealth or going to private school or being around alumni associations and stuff? You did not grow up there. That's not your story. And that's okay, but I think that a lot of women are disingenuous. They try to pretend like they have a different background than what they really have. And by the way, there is no one that has a perfect background. But this is why I tell the exoticals to never take advice from somebody that you wouldn't trade lives with. And this is also why I say that I am not an advice channel. You know, cuz even with me as an anonymous content creator, you can't vet me. You really don't know who I am. I really could be a liar or a grifter or whatever. So even what I say, you don't want to take everything I say and just automatically follow what I'm doing either. As a matter of fact, you shouldn't be blindly following anyone on the internet. That's weird. No two people agree on every single thing. So yeah, but I also feel like some women, they're mad because they don't have a reason to be beautiful. They don't care about being beautiful. They just want to be acceptable. That's it. They just want to be accepted by white people, Hispanic people, Asian people, by men, etc. So they're wearing their beauty enhancements not as an enhancement, they're wearing it as a replacement. They're wearing their wigs so they can survive. So that's a different reason as to why like I might wear a wig. I don't have to, I'm not in survival mode. I don't even work for anybody else anymore. So there is no survival mode like, oh my God, I have to try to look presentable. And that's another question I have for women with inferiority complexes. Who told you that you weren't presentable? What's their name? What are their names? Who told you that your hair is unpresentable or unkempt? What's her name? What is his name? What race were they? Because it probably wasn't a white person. It was probably somebody within your own community or somebody who has the same hair type as you. So I've noticed that for some people, they don't pursue pretty privilege because nobody else around them has pretty privilege. So they never saw it as important. They have an ugly ass mama, an ugly ass grandmama, ugly ass sisters, ugly ass cousins and aunties. Everybody in their family was ugly, according to them. According to their own talking points, everyone in their own bloodline was unattractive because they came from unattractive mothers and fathers. And if you don't believe me, there actually are some women online saying this that, if you have a certain type of father, like if your father's black and dark skinned or whatever, then like that's unattractive or, so some people genuinely believe that their whole family and their whole bloodline is ugly. And so it's like, okay, if they were already raised in an environment of unattractive women, of course they don't realize the benefits of pretty privilege. They've never had it. They were not raised in pretty privileged culture. They weren't exposed to pretty privileged culture. So that's why they tend to do so much stereotyping of us. They stereotype us and they always ask us questions like, wait a minute, you're pretty. Why didn't you just get pregnant by a basketball player? Why didn't you become a celebrity? It's like, ma'am, you're stereotyping. Everybody who's pretty privileged, we are not a monolith. There are pretty privileged women who go to college. There are pretty women who want to be doctors and dentists. We don't all want to be a fucking IG baddie or somebody's baby mama or whatever. So the fact that somebody would even stereotype that as the standard for pretty privilege, that tells me that she herself is not pretty privileged. She does not have any pretty privileged friends or family members because anybody who does have family members who are pretty, they know that being pretty, you can go down whatever path in life you want. You don't have to automatically try to sleep your way to the top if you're pretty. So that's another thing too. A lot of non-pretty women, they feel like if they were pretty, they would use their pussy to try to have power. Like they would try to sleep their way to the top, or they would try to sleep their way into a relationship or whatever. It's always revolving around sex and men. So it's a very base level desire. That's more of a low level desire, if I'm being honest. Like, even if you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, or if you look at like human behaviors, sex and being touched and stuff, that's more of a base level desire. Just because you have a man touching on you, honey, you are not self actualized. Like, what are you talking about? The fact that you view that as the pinnacle of pretty privilege, that says more about you than it does about the exotical community. But I've noticed that one of the other talking points people will say is, oh, well, being pretty isn't everything. Nobody said it was everything. They'll be like, being pretty is not everything or being pretty doesn't matter. Okay, that's an ugly girl talking point. That's a Dustisha talking point. It's only the people that don't have something that try to downplay its importance. Have you ever noticed that? Like, it's always the big women who say being skinny is not important. It's always the people who they'll never have access to money. Those are the ones who say, well, having money is not important. No, each type of privilege is important, but I feel like women with a scarcity mindset, they put each privilege on a hierarchy, and it's like, you don't get to tell me how to be Exoticals United. You don't get to tell me how to live my life. I have the choice on what privileges I would like to attain. So I get to be as beautiful as I want. I can choose to prioritize that, or I can prioritize something else, like education privilege. And it's actually pretty funny how a lot of people, they think that the exotical space is like very shallow. They think that we talk only about pretty privilege. That's actually false. I've got over 1,000 videos on my channel, and About 90% of my videos actually have nothing to do with pretty privilege, but it's always the Dustishas. The only videos they click on my channel are the pretty privileged ones. So that's all they see in their algorithm because, that's what they're pursuing is pretty privilege. So I've just noticed that Dustishas, they get mad because those Dustishas, they have no reason to be beautiful. Think about it. She's a Dustisha. Where she lives is dusty. Her boyfriend that she lives with is dusty. She's in a dusty 50-50 or hypogamous relationship. She has to have maintenance sex in order to maintain a place to live. She has to have maintenance sex with an unattractive, dusty man. So she's a Dustisha. She has no reason to be pretty. When she walks outside, she works at a dusty place. She doesn't feel inspired at her job or anything. So she feels like, there's no reason to dress up at work because she doesn't like her job. She doesn't like what she does for a living. She doesn't like the city or the state or the neighborhood that she lives in. So she has no reason to be beautiful. Because think about it, beauty actually, it still does have a purpose. Beauty has a purpose. The purpose of beauty is to make yourself feel good, or maybe it's to kind of match up with the environment. Maybe you're mirroring your environment. Like, how a lot of people, they dress up before they go to a fancy restaurant? Yeah, they are mirroring the environment of that restaurant. The restaurant is beautiful. A lot of people dress up on vacation. Why? Well, because they're vacationing in a beautiful place. So they're dressing in a way that is mirroring their environment. So the women who say things like, "Oh, well, being pretty doesn't matter," or, these women who have no reason to be pretty, well, it's most likely because their environment is ugly as fuck. Their environment is dusty and ugly. Their boyfriend is not worthy of them dressing up. A lot of women, they will get with this guy who's like dusty, or they'll get with a guy who they're not really into, and then they let themselves go. Well, yeah, it's because you don't really like the guy. And you're lying to yourself and saying, "Oh, well, no, I do love him." No, that's why you see a lot of married women, as soon as they get married, what happens? They let themselves go. Why? Well, because that man, he let himself go. He stopped investing in her. A lot of women, once they get married, they realize that their marriages are dusty. And so part of their coping mechanism is they naturally let themselves go because they're like, why would I dress up? I'm not in love with this guy. I don't really love the guy I'm with. I'm not really into him like that. So that's why you see a lot of married women, they get more dressed up when they're around their single friends versus when they're with their husbands. It's because a lot of them have no reason to really be attractive for their husband because they don't really like their husbands like that. They got married because they thought that their marriage or relationship was a form of social status. So have you ever noticed it's always the most unattractive women that brag the most about their relationships? Have you ever noticed that? It's always the women who are average at best who are bragging the most about my man, my man, my man. It's always those women. I have never in my life seen a woman who's stunning and drop dead gorgeous where she is completely male centered and all she does is brag about how she has a man and other women don't. I've never seen that. I've never seen that. Maybe if they're a grifter, then that makes more sense. But like in my everyday life, usually it's the unattractive or average at best women who brag the most about how they're not single. Because in their mind, not being chosen by a man is like the ultimate failure, right? And that's also a sign of being raised by a pick me mother. So I feel like that's another very common generational curse is coming from a long line of pick me women. So, her mom was a pick me, her grandma was a pick. And also, if you don't believe me, just ask those women, hey, do you still talk to your mom? I guarantee she's no contact with her mother. She's no contact with her grandmother. She's no contact with her sisters. Why? Well, it's because she comes from an environment of dusty women and pick me women. So it's like, how is somebody who comes from that environment going to tell me what I should be doing with my life? How is someone who comes from that environment going to suddenly be an expert on leveling up? And if you do come from that type of background, that's okay. What I have a problem with, though, is when people try to control other women. Like, they're trying to tell you how to live your life. They want to tell you what you're doing wrong. Or, they don't have a reason to be beautiful, so they don't want you to be beautiful either. So it's this talking point of, if I don't get to be gorgeous, you can't either. If I don't get to call myself pretty, I'm not going to call you pretty either. Have you ever been around somebody who refuses to compliment you? They will compliment every other woman in the room. They have something nice to say about everybody. But suddenly when it comes to you, oh yeah, you look okay. Oh yeah, oh your makeup's all right. They always find a flaw. They always find a flaw with what you're doing. But some women, they have no reason to be beautiful, because Dustisha, she comes from an environment where femininity is demonized. So they call femininity being a Jezebel or being a hoe. Maybe she comes from a male centered environment as well, where she's been told that being beautiful is a form of temptation to men. And so, there are some communities, like a lot of religious communities are like that. They control women. Instead of holding the men accountable, they'll call women the temptation. They'll be like, oh, she's a temptress. Oh, she's a seductress. So for some women, they don't want to be beautiful because it goes against their internal belief system. It goes against their morals. Being too pretty and definitely being sexy, that goes against her morals. And so it's this mindset of, if I can't be sexy, you can't either. If I don't get to wear a bikini, you can't either. If I can't flaunt my body and be pretty, then you can't either. If I don't feel comfortable in my body, you don't get to feel comfortable in yours either. If I don't feel beautiful in my skin complexion, you can't feel beautiful either. If I don't feel beautiful without a wig, you must not feel beautiful either. So it's all kind of like a form of projection. And when it comes to Dustisha, she has a dusty boyfriend. So is she supposed to spend her money and get dressed up for him? Every place she hangs out in is dusty. Let's be for real. Like, she's going to get her manicure and pedicure. She's going to get her makeup and hair done for what? So she can stand in a nightclub parking lot and smoke Black and Milds? Like, seriously, why is she getting pretty? For what? She's getting dressed up so she can go where? Dustishas are not cute because they don't have anything cute going on in their lives. Their life is not cute. You're over here talking about, oh, well, your outfit's not cute or your hair's not cute. Bitch, your life ain't cute. Your bank account is not cute. Your boyfriend's not cute. Your apartment's not cute. That car payment you have is not cute. Your debt to income ratio is not cute, bitch. But I feel like a lot of Dustishas, they don't care about being pretty because, think about it, these women, they don't get a return on their investment. Beauty is an investment, or at least for me, beauty actually is an investment, because I've had opportunities in my life based on beauty. I've been able to get paid based on beauty, and I'm sure the same is true for the majority of my audience. But Dustishas, for them, like, beauty is generally a waste of time. Like, it's going to be a waste of time. It's really going to be a waste of money because she's not getting a return on her beauty investment. So this goes back to bad social climbing decisions. So some women, they spend all this time like purchasing these wigs, for example, and then it's like, okay, but you're not getting a return on that investment. So if you're spending $1,000 on a wig, or you're spending $500 on these braids or whatever, what is the return on that investment? What do you get out of it? That is a question that I always ask myself. Before I pursue a certain type of beauty, I will ask myself, what do I want to gain from this beauty? Because why would I spend $1,000 on a wig? It's like, okay, am I doing a fucking hair commercial, bitch? Like, am I gonna be doing a photo shoot? Am I gonna be in the public eye somehow? Am I putting photos up for my website or something? Like, what's going on? What is the return that I get on my investment? That's where a lot of women go wrong. They're buying wigs because they're trying to meet somebody else's beauty standard as well, as opposed to meeting their own internal beauty standard. There's a reason you don't see me with a 613 bust down. It's because that just happens to not be my internal beauty standard. So if I were to get something where it's not authentic to me, I don't wear faux locks because that's not authentic to me. So if I were to get $1,000 worth of faux locks, that's not a good beauty investment because I'm not getting a return on that. All I'm doing is trying to fit in with somebody else. So a lot of women, they have this tendency to pursue the types of beauty that they think will make them fit in. And so then they get depressed because it's like, oh wow, I spent all this money so I could like get the male gaze, or I spent this money so I could fit in with light skinned women, and then I still failed. Well, yeah, I'd be mad too. I would be super mad if I invested all that money and I don't get a return on my investment. So that's another habit of the Dustisha. Um, you know, she's doing all this beauty stuff and she doesn't get a return on her investment. So that's why with some Dustishas, they don't get dressed up or anything because it's not worth it. They're putting in more energy than they're getting back, you know. So even if you're doing something because maybe you want compliments, like I've noticed that's something that some women care about is the amount of compliments they're getting. Well, imagine spending $1,000 on your hair, makeup, nails, facial, etc., and then you still don't get compliments. Well, yeah, of course she's mad. She spent $1,000 hoping to receive a compliment. Well, that's an expensive ass compliment. So that's why I say that some women, they're not beautiful because they don't have a reason to be beautiful. So this is why I always ask the exoticals, why do you want to be pretty? So, for example, if you looked perfect starting tomorrow, what would you do? If you had perfect hair, perfect skin, perfect face, perfect proportions, your body is perfect, if you looked perfect starting tomorrow, then what would you do? How would your life change? What would you do different? How would your life be different? That's something that I ask myself. You know, that helps me to kind of understand what type of beauty I want and why I want it. Okay, number 5. A dusty woman will not want to be pretty because let's be honest, she's invisible. She is still not visible. She's not visible enough to care. She's not visible enough. She doesn't have people looking up to her. She doesn't have anybody pedestalizing her. She is not a standard of beauty in anybody's race, ethnicity, community. She's not a standard of beauty within her geographical location, etc. So, of course, she doesn't want to be pretty because she's not visible enough. She's dealing with a lack of visibility, which is a different problem. Because I do believe that visibility privilege is also a thing as well. And I think that's something that a lot of women get triggered by. Because remember, I said this years ago, beauty is visibility, visibility is beauty. Those things contribute to one another. And if you don't believe me, just go back and look at my entire series on pretty privilege. I have like dozens of videos on pretty privilege, but I feel like for some women, they're not going to get visibility. They don't have any motion, is what I'm trying to say. They have no motion. So it's like she doesn't have any social media. Maybe she lives in a very small, tiny town. Maybe she works at a very small company. Maybe she works remotely. You know, it's the same 5 people that are seeing her every day. So it's like, why is she going to get dressed up? For what? So she can go to the local convenience store, gas station, and get hollered at? Like, some women, they don't have visibility at all, and so they don't have the motivation to be pretty because their environment is not going to give out pretty privilege. And so that's why I always tell the exoticals, like, who do you want pretty privilege from? Because you have to remember, pretty privilege is still external. So ultimately, I do promote having an internal locus of control. But I do think that when it comes to privileges, especially pretty privilege, that is still given to you by others as well. So, yeah, you might meet your internal beauty standard, but other people are the ones who also give you the pretty privilege. Other people are the ones who are giving you the free drinks. They're the ones who are offering you the jobs. They're the ones who are asking you on the date or whatever. I don't know. Um, so I think that is something else that a lot of Dustishas don't think about. But generally speaking, if she's black, she wants pretty privilege from non-black men. You know, that's what their standard of beauty is in the black female community. What they're going to be asking is, what do white men think of you? What do non-black men think of your beauty? I notice that's kind of their standard. They have a very white male centered or Asian male centered or Hispanic male centered. They have an Indian male centered version of beauty. So, you know, that's why you see a lot of them wearing Indian hair, for example, because they're thinking, okay, Indian men are attracted to Indian hair. Okay, well, Hispanic men, they're attracted to Peruvian hair. So let me wear a Peruvian hair texture. Let me wear a Dominican curly. Or if she's a hotep, you know, maybe she wants to prove herself to black men. Oh, black men like long natural 4C hair. so let me grow my hair out. Oh, black men like long relaxed hair, so let me have a long relaxer. Or, let me do faux locks because that's what the black guys like. So I think that it's very important to ask, like, who do you want to recognize your beauty? Like, who do you want compliments from? What exact privileges do you want? So, like I said, let's pretend that you just became perfect overnight. You have perfect beauty. You meet your internalized beauty standard. Okay, now what? What do you want now? What do you want this world to give you? And, I see a lot of people talking about like manifestation and all that. Okay, so then what do you want to manifest? What do you want your beauty to help you manifest? What kind of lifestyle do you want to live? Do you want to be the pretty girl who goes to Pilates? Do you want to be the pretty girl who's in college? Or because, like, when I was in college, I cared a lot about pretty privilege, but I cared about college pretty privilege. So, being the cute girl on campus, I didn't so much care about like how I looked outside of college as much. I noticed that when I was younger, it was more so like I was trying to, I was trying to fulfill like my inner child's desire of being the pretty girl on the college campus, wearing my cute little plaid skirts and wearing my cute little pea coats and my Mary Janes, so that's something to think about because your imagination, it contributes to your standard of beauty. My standard of beauty is not just based on the media because I'm not a dumbass bitch. I don't just follow people like a sheep. I'm not a fucking sheep. I have a lot of critical thinking skills. And guess what? I have my own imagination, bitch. I don't have to copy how you look. I don't need to copy a fucking ratchet ass 613 wig. I don't have to have a black and mild in my hand to be cute, bitch. I have an imagination. So a lot of my internal beauty standard is also based on my imagination. So for example, the cute college girl beauty standard, I do think part of it was influenced by the media. So watching shows like Clueless or watching movies like Clueless and stuff, I will say I do think those influenced me. But really, what it was when I would play with my Barbies and my Brats and my Scene dolls. I don't know if you guys remember my Scene dolls in the 2000s, but when I would play with my dolls, they were always pretty girls in college. And then I had the little Barbie dollhouse and I would pretend that like the girls lived together, that they had their own dorm room or whatever. And that was always the storyline when I was a little girl. That was always my storyline whenever I would play and use my imagination. So if you really want to get more creative with your pretty privilege, just use your imagination. Because remember, creativity privilege actually contributes to your pretty privilege. Your creativity and your uniqueness as a woman, that definitely contributes to your pretty privilege. So, you know how they have a lot of beauty trends? Okay, who starts the trends? Whoever starts the trend is usually a creative pretty woman. That's who started the trend. So, what types of games did you play when you were a little girl? What kind of pretty privilege did your Barbie dolls have? Like, when you were making up the game in your head, how did those girls look? How did those girls act? Because the cute college girl aesthetic, that was a part of my inner child. When I was younger, I always wanted to go to college. And I do think it had to do with how I was raised as well. Like in my house, my parents, they definitely encouraged me to go to college and stuff. So, that's a whole other thing as well. Your cultural background, your socioeconomic background, that also influences your internal beauty standard. So, no, I didn't grow up looking up to fucking ratchet ass, male centered women who are chasing after white men. That's just not what I grew up having my standard as. That wasn't my standard. So, something you can think about as an exotical is when you were a little girl and you used to play with toys, how did you imagine your Barbie dolls looking in your head? Because the way that children play, it's a reflection of their inner selves. It's a reflection of how they wish they looked. That's why I brought up like The Sims and Grand Theft Auto, because you know how you create your own character in those games? So even though you're just playing a game, you're using your imagination to create that beauty standard. So, what kind of characters did you create whenever you were playing video games? Whenever you played those Barbie fashion games and stuff, what kind of aesthetic were you doing? Because that's your internal beauty standard. But for a lot of Dustishas, um, part of why they are not pretty is because they're not visible. No one's going to witness their beauty. And it's okay to want your beauty to be witnessed. That is totally okay. There's nothing wrong with that, as long as you're not hurting yourself or others so you can be noticed, you know. So there's nothing wrong with wanting attention. I freely admit on this channel, that's what social climbing is. That's what privilege is. It's actually getting automatic positive attention. It's about being positively stereotyped. So there's nothing wrong with wanting attention as long as you're not dropping your boundaries or hurting others to get that attention. But if I were to think about my internal beauty standard, I feel like part of why I like being pretty is because I enjoy inspiring other women. So, for example, if I'm going to a women's book club or I'm going to a women's meetup, like in my city, I will dress hyper feminine. I will dress in all pink from head to toe. I'm going to wear something fuzzy. I might wear something sparkly because part of my feminine expression, I like when my beauty is contagious. I actually like that. I like that. I love inspiring other women, and I love when I'm like walking around and then little girls look at me. I mean, that's actually the most validating for me is when little teenagers or little young girls, when they compliment me and they're like, "You look like a princess," or when they're like excited when they see me. I think that's so cute actually. Um so that's something else that you can think about too. Like, why do you like being beautiful? Do you like inspiring other women's beauty? I know that some women who have daughters, they will wear their hair natural and celebrate the beauty of their natural hair because they like to be kind of like this beauty role model for their daughter. So that's another motivation why some people want to be beautiful. So, what is your motive behind being beautiful? Are you being pretty so you can represent your race or represent your skin tone or your phenotype? Are you trying to be pretty because, I don't know, you want a certain opportunity? So there is no wrong answer. One's not better than the other. But that is something that helps me to curate my own unique beauty fingerprint. Because I feel like if women were actually authentic, then each woman would actually have her own unique version of beauty. No two women have the exact same beauty, not even identical twins. Like even if you know some people who are twins, usually one twin might dress a little bit different or, she does her makeup different than the other twin. So I actually believe that beauty is abundant. I think that there are millions of different types of beauty. There are so many different ways to be beautiful. You can be beautiful with makeup, with no makeup, with hair extension, with hair color, with short hair, long hair. So the women who are dustishas, they have a scarcity mindset, and they try to enforce their internal beauty standard on you. That's what they try to do. They try to say, "Oh, well, you're not pretty enough because you're not skinny enough, or you're not pretty because you don't have a big booty, or you're not pretty because you're not dark skinned. You're not pretty because you're not black. So because you're white, you're automatically ugly and then you're going to age like milk." They have all these random rules that they try to put on other women's beauty. They have limitations. They have beauty limitations. But another way the Exoticals can identify what their unique beauty standard is, I want you to pull up your most beautiful pictures. So these could be recent pictures, it could be older pictures. Why do you think those pictures are the most pretty? What was going on in your life at the time? Because I feel like your lifestyle also contributes to your beauty. Because when I think of some of my most beautiful pictures, so not counting right now, but some of my prettiest pictures that I like the best are actually from when I was the brokest. So, you would think that being beautiful means you have to be rich, right? Because a lot of ugly people, they came up with this stereotype that, oh, you're not ugly, you're just broke. So what they're implying is the more money you have, the more beautiful you'll be, which is actually false. Um, but if I think about some of my pictures where I felt the prettiest, it was not based on how much money I had. It wasn't based on me having the perfect life. As a matter of fact, I was also single in the pictures that I think were the most pretty. And what I remember specifically about some of my favorite pictures is my smile and how I was just like, I was so happy. You could literally see happiness just radiating off of me. You could see like this warmth. I had like this warmth in my face. I feel like I have it now too, but I'm just saying in some of my favorite pictures, I just feel like I had so much warmth. I had so much like hope and like I don't know, I just had a light in my eyes, and I just feel like my aura was different. I don't know what other word to use other than the word aura. I don't identify as spiritual or anything, but I feel like part of your beauty does come from kind of like your aura, or like how you carry yourself, or the thoughts that you're thinking. Cause like I genuinely felt beautiful. So even though I had no money, like one of the pictures specifically, it was literally me sitting in a cafeteria. So I was in the cafeteria. I was sitting there. I just had my hair up in a bun. I had my natural hair in a bun, and then I had my curly bayang. So my hair was in kind of this curly slash wavy bun. I had a curly bang, and I was just looking off to the side. I wasn't even looking at the camera. I feel like that's part of what made that picture so beautiful is I wasn't trying. I wasn't doing like this try hard type of thing. Like I feel like a lot of dustishas, they feel like beauty has to be difficult. They don't really believe in like different types of beauty or effortless beauty. But in that photo of myself, I felt like I was effortlessly radiating beauty. So no, I didn't have the most trendy makeup on. I did not have my lashes done in the photo. I didn't have my nails done or anything. I literally was wearing a thrift store outfit. I was very into thrifting at that time. So I had on my thrift store outfit. I had on my little snow boots, and I was just sitting there just eating my slice of pizza in the cafeteria. And I feel like that's one of my most beautiful pictures because not only does it capture beauty, but I feel like it kind of captures a part of my personality as well because that's very me. That's very me. Like thrifting, going eating a slice of pizza randomly and then like going out exploring the city with my friends. So I feel like your beauty not only does it represent you, but I feel like the beauty that you project out into the world, it represents a certain lifestyle. People associate your beauty with a particular lifestyle. So this is also why, like in terms of shoes, I've had people make fun of my shoes before and say that, like, I'm not wearing the fanciest shoes. I'm just wearing flip flops or I'm just wearing, just basic shoes. But that's a part of my type of beauty. I am the type of girl where I do like to walk a lot and I do like to go to the gym and go on hikes and stuff. And like, I'm getting on planes and stuff or traveling. So yeah, no, I'm not going to be always wearing stiletto heels. That's a part of my beauty standard, but it's not my only beauty standard in terms of shoes. So some of my favorite pictures, yeah, I'm not wearing the most fancy outfit or like, a lot of women they might feel like their most beautiful picture is them sitting in a five-star restaurant and wearing a silky shirt or something like that, or wearing their hair slicked back in this bun, and that's fine. So maybe they have an elegant standard of beauty, and that's okay. That's part of my beauty standard as well, but I have more of a fluid standard of beauty, and I just feel like my lifestyle, it contributes to my internal beauty standard. So I think that's why when I think of some of my favorite pictures of myself, I'm not always wearing the fanciest outfit. I'm just wearing like a basic outfit. I have some photos where I'm just wearing very practical clothing. So it's not like I'm dripped in designer from head to toe and like I've just got all these diamonds on my neck or something. No, it's just I look like I'm traveling. I'm sitting there with a slice of pizza and my hair is just wrapped up in a bun or whatever, and I'm just smiling and happy, and I felt beautiful in those pictures. So I think for some women, they might be beautiful on the outside, but they don't feel beautiful on the inside. So you basically canceled out your fucking pretty privilege. You basically canceled it out because the whole point of attaining the pretty privilege is you're supposed to feel beautiful. So if you are technically looking beautiful, but then you don't feel beautiful, then you did nothing more than just put on a costume. And that's exactly what happens. We've got a lot of dustishas walking around with costumes on. So they may look pretty to your eyes, maybe you think they're pretty, but in reality they don't think they're pretty because they're the way that they adorn themselves with their beauty, it's not authentic to them and it's not authentic to their lifestyle and how they see themselves. They're just trying to put on a costume so the world will perceive them a certain way, and that's not how I view beauty. That's never how I wanted to view beauty because that sounds more like a burden to me. oh, well, I don't like myself. I want Johnny to perceive me a certain way. So let me try to dress elegant, even though that's not my genuine, I don't even like fucking slack pants. I hate those pants where it's like the slacks and then it's all baggy and shit. And it's like you're wearing hammer pants to a restaurant. Like, no, bitch, that's not how I dress. So just because that's a beauty standard in the elegant beauty community, well, that's not authentic to me because I don't like those pants. My hips are wide enough. Why do I need something that makes them even more wide? So if I wanted to meet this elegant beauty standard for the day, I'm going to find another way to be elegant. I'm not going to try to put on something that I don't even like because that's what the other girls are wearing. No, if it's not authentic to me, if I don't feel like myself in those beauty items, then I'm not going to wear them. That's why I don't wear faux locks. That's why I don't wear certain things. It's not because I can't, and it's not because I look ugly. It's more so that I feel like my pretty privilege is more impactful when I am being authentic to who I am on the inside. So it's not about me trying to measure up. I feel like a lot of women, even if they do their makeup and hair perfectly, the reason they still don't feel beautiful is because they were just trying to measure up to someone. And that's not what beauty is about. Beauty is supposed to be fun. You're supposed to feel feminine. You're supposed to feel playful. You should feel like you're playing around. You should feel experimental with your beauty. And, that's a sign that you're doing it right. That's a sign that you're doing pretty privilege correctly. If you're feeling stressed out, oh my God, how am I going to pay for this BBL? Oh my God, how am I going to pay for my nails and the nail art and then the manicure and pedicure? And like, if your beauty is a source of stress for you, you're doing it wrong. That's not real beauty. You're actually masking. That's what that is. I don't know if you guys know what masking is. It's like when a person puts up a fake personality or when they're trying to cover something up so they can be accepted by others. That's why some women feel stressed out when they do certain beauty enhancements. So, is there anything in the beauty industry where you feel stressed when you're doing it? So, like for me personally, I don't wear acrylic nails because that would make me feel stressed out. That would make me feel like I'm masking because long acrylic nails, that's not authentic to me. My lifestyle actually doesn't really measure up with acrylic nails. It doesn't. I carry a lot of purses, I carry a lot of bags and stuff. My hands are always rummaging through a bag. I'm always on the elliptical or I'm out hiking outside and shit. So like my actual lifestyle and who I am as a person literally does not match up with long acrylic nails. So it's not that the nails are ugly, it's more so that if I were to do acrylic nails, that would actually be more of a source of stress for me. I would feel inauthentic because the beauty that I have is not it's not authentic to my actual lifestyle. It wouldn't be authentic to who I really am. So I think for some women, they put certain beauty enhancements down because those beauty enhancements don't match with their lifestyle. And it's like, no, just because I don't wear acrylic nails, it doesn't mean you can't be gorgeous with acrylic nails. I don't have to put down another type of beauty in order to lift up my beauty. So like I can be pretty with short nails and you can be pretty with long nails. But a lot of the dustishas, they feel like, no, if I can't be pretty with the long nails, you can't either. If I don't feel pretty in a wig and a ton of makeup, you don't feel pretty either. You shouldn't feel pretty with all that glam makeup on because I don't feel pretty with the glam makeup. So it's projection. So I don't mind if women have different beauty standards than me as long as they don't try to force me to meet that beauty standard. Don't project your shit onto me because, bitch, I ain't you and I don't want to be you. And you shouldn't want me to be you either. But when you think about the most beautiful woman you know, or when you think of yourself when you were the most beautiful, what kind of lifestyle were you living? Because that also tells me what kind of lifestyle contributes to your beauty. So actually, it just popped up in my head with my hair. So I told you guys about when I grew my hair like 13 inches after I broke it off or whatever. And my hair was very healthy and stuff. So part of why that happened though is because my lifestyle aligned with my beauty goals. So I was drinking fruit smoothies every single day. Actually, my diet was very clean. It was majority fruits and vegetables. And then I would have eggs and stuff like for my protein. Um, so, what lifestyle were you living when you were the most beautiful? Were you stressed out? Were you with a dusty man? Were you in a relationship? Or were you single? when you felt the most beautiful? Go and look back at your photo album right now. Go look at your phone. Go look at your Instagram or Facebook, whatever pictures you felt were the prettiest in terms of posting. Clearly, you felt beautiful in those pictures. So, what made you feel beautiful? Was it the fact that you were skinnier? Were you more in shape? Did you take better care of your skin or your teeth or something like that? Were you living in an inspiring environment? Because my environment is a really big factor in my beauty. Like if I'm in an ugly ass environment, I'm gonna level down. I'm gonna naturally level down if I'm around a bunch of dusty people. That's why I call it Dustisha, because everything in her life is dusty. Her boyfriend's dusty. Where she lives is dusty. All the environments she's in is dusty. So that's why some women, they're not beautiful, because they have no reason to be beautiful. Be beautiful for what? In her state, being beautiful actually makes her a target. That makes her more likely to get beat up. She's more likely to be robbed now. She's more likely to encounter violence by being beautiful. So that's why some women, they stay dusticious. It's like she's not going to be pretty because she has no reason to be pretty. Being pretty is literally going to cause her life to be even worse. So that's where you get kind of these leveled down, kind of dusty women who they're scared of their own beauty or they don't feel safe. She's in a dangerous environment. If you don't feel safe in your beauty, you're in the wrong environment. You're doing it wrong. Get out of that environment. Why? Who told you to be in that environment? Who told you to be in this ugly ass, dusty ass environment? So this is why I also, this is part of why my channel is geared towards older women. My channel is actually not geared towards teenagers and college students, because a lot of women who are that young, usually they can't really control where they live yet. They don't have independence yet. The less independence you have, the less likely you are to meet your internal beauty standard, by the way. Because you don't have the independence yet. You don't have the money yet. You don't live in a place where you can do the hair treatments and all that, because maybe you live with a bunch of roommates. And so, you can't take up the bathroom for that long. And so now you can't do your makeup. And so your level of independence contributes to how much beauty you'll be able to attain. And I'm not talking about glamorous beauty. I'm talking about natural beauty here. So, if you're living with 10 roommates and then you really wanted to do an apple cider vinegar treatment on your hair, okay, well, you can't, because apple cider vinegar smells terrible. So now you're going to offend all the people that you live with because you're trying to do this apple cider vinegar rinse on your natural hair. So that's why I say that you do need some level of independence. Like it helps. Basically, the more independent you are, or like the more time you have, that also helps you to attain your internalized beauty standard. So living by yourself, you've never heard me on this channel tell the Exoticals to go live with people. You have never heard me say that. I would never say that on this channel, because I don't want anyone to have power over your living situation. I always want the Exoticals to be as independent as possible. I want you to be able to have your own place to live that you can afford to live. I want you to not have to depend on your parents or a boyfriend or siblings or whatever. So I also feel like for some women who are dustishas, they live with a bunch of people, they've got a bunch of monitoring spirits around them, or they have more people that sabotage them. The more people you live with, the more opportunities there are for those people to sabotage you. They can literally sabotage your beauty by grocery shopping and only buying cookies and processed food. If you're too poor to afford your own groceries, and then all they have is processed food, and they're buying that on purpose, and they don't care about your health goals, well, yeah, they have the opportunity to sabotage you. So this is why I always encourage the Exoticals to have a form of independence. I want you to be financially independent, have your own place to live, or, just have some sort of privacy. So, whatever the bare minimum is for you. So in my case, I can't live with roommates. I lived with roommates when I was in college, but after college, that's when I was like, okay, I'm not going to live with roommates anymore. I personally can't live with roommates or family members. As much as I love my family, I don't want to live with them. So I had to get my ass up, get a job, save up my money. I literally became a receptionist. I was working 30 hours a week. And I took my little paycheck. I was making about $1,600 a month after you take out like taxes and all that. But I still got approved for a little apartment. It was not in the nicest area. It wasn't in the ghetto, but it wasn't in the suburbs. It was adjacent to the suburbs. So I couldn't afford to live in my actual hometown. I could only afford to live in the city next to my hometown at the time. But guess what? I still got to live by myself and I grew as a person and I was able to invest more in my beauty. You know why? Because now I can buy the hooded dryer and then sit under the hooded dryer when I do my hair. Now I can take up the kitchen for 3 hours to do my meal prep. And I remember when I got my first apartment, I was so happy about that, especially the meal prepping thing, um, because, then I could invest more in my beauty. So yeah, I had my rice cooker going. I was making all my overnight oats. So I had like 10 or 12 mason jars. Well, I don't think you're supposed to make that many overnight oats at once, but I had all these different mason jars and stuff. So I got to take over the whole kitchen because it's my kitchen now. And I also got to use the blender as much as I wanted because that was one of the complaints that my roommates had about me. Back when I had roommates, they complained because I would use the blender. They would say, the blender is loud. Why are you using the blender every single day? It's annoying, it's distracting. Or like, oh, I was trying to take a nap. And it's like, bitch, I don't know your nap schedule. I don't know your wake up schedule. I don't know your sleep schedule. I don't know when you're taking a nap in the middle of the day. So, that was one of my old roommates' complaints. I was over here just trying to be pretty and healthy and drink my fruit smoothie. But then I have roommates who are getting pissed off because they don't want to hear the sound of the blender. So that's why you've never heard me say on this channel that you should live with other people. I would never wish that on my worst enemy. I would not wish that on my worst enemy for you to have to depend on living with other people. No, I want you to have as much privacy as you can afford. And I'm not looking down on it if you do live with roommates. Because, like I said, I live with roommates. So, however much you can afford to have as much privacy as possible, your privacy, the level of privacy that you have, contributes to your beauty. It does. So, like, I remember when I was in college, actually, my sophomore year of college, I lived on my own. Like, I lived in a dorm where it was just a single dorm. So, the sophomore dorms, they were all singles. So, I lived in a co ed dorm, but I had my own room. And I didn't have my own bathroom, but I had my own sink and my own mirror. So guess what? I got to experiment more with like makeup and hair and stuff. I could be as messy as I wanted. Because that's another thing too. When you have roommates and stuff, people complain like, why are these clothes everywhere? Well, because I'm trying to match my outfits and stuff. I'm trying to put together my outfits, or maybe I'm purging my closet. I'm kind of like getting rid of the stuff that's too big. But if you have a bunch of people that you're living with, they might get annoyed by that. So I also feel like for some women, part of why they can't be beautiful is because they don't have enough privacy. They don't have the privacy and the space to experiment with their beauty. There are too many people kind of watching them or monitoring them. Too many people have influence over their beauty. And then also they're on a time constraint. You can't use the bathroom. I used to hate, okay, when I lived with people, I used to hate how when I was sharing a bathroom, let's say I have to get ready to go somewhere at 11, and then there's always somebody in the bathroom. There was always someone using up the bathroom until 10:30. So it's like I had to wait in line basically just to use the bathroom because I lived with other people. So, that's another aspect of why some women, they can't be beautiful. They don't have the privacy, they don't have the space, they don't have access to their own bathrooms, they don't have access to their own mirror or their own sink or their own kitchen. So it's like, yeah, she can't make the face mask in the kitchen. She can't do the little hair treatment and then go back and rinse it out whenever she wants because now the bathroom is being used up. Somebody's in the bathroom boo-booing right now, so she can't go in. But another reason that some dustishas are not able to be pretty is because that dustisha, she doesn't have a car, she doesn't have reliable transportation. So she can't go to the hair salon. She can't go to the cheap clothing store, or she doesn't have access to go to the cheap beauty supply, or like she's limited basically. She has limited resources. She has limited access to beauty services. And you know what? That was me for a little while when I was younger. So I had to learn how to figure it out on my own. But like I said, that's why I feel like you have to pick a struggle. It's like either you have transportation to go somewhere else, to do your beauty stuff, or you live by yourself and you can DIY a lot of stuff. So when I was younger, I did have to do a lot of DIY. So thankfully, I had extra time to create my own shampoos and conditioners, making my own face masks. I made my own body scrubs because I couldn't afford to go to the spa and all that. So I luckily had time. But for some women, they don't have an abundance of time and they don't have an abundance of money. They don't have an abundance of privacy. So that's why a lot of Dustishas, they're not able to be pretty. She doesn't have the privacy. She doesn't have time. She's working several jobs and then she's coming back living with 10 or 12 people or whatever. And then she doesn't have a car or she has to take the bus. Another reason why some Dustishas look bad is because they're in a stressful environment. So, for example, part of why I moved was because I got tired of taking the trains and the subways. I literally was starting to get pissed off all the time because there was always somebody catcalling. There was always some bullshit that happened on the fucking train. So I started getting stressed out. And then whenever I would forget my earphones, oh my God, that was the worst, is when I would forget my earphones. So then I have to sit there and listen to Dusty's try to talk to me or whatever. There was always somebody like preaching or like, the Hebrew Israelites or like the people that go on the bus and then they have like all these oils on their chest and then they're trying to sell like body oils and shit. So depending on where I was going, there was always some bullshit. So all of that stuff, it drains your beauty. Cortisol, having high cortisol levels, being in these stressed out environments, that is a part of what drains a woman's beauty. And that's what the Dustishas are going through. They have to sit on the bus for a long time or maybe they have roommates who smoke cigarettes or something, so now her hair smells like cigarette smoke. She just spent $500 on a new wig and now the wig smells like cigarette smoke and Black and Milds because all her roommates are smokers or she lives in a place with mold or something. So now her wigs and weaves, all her clothes smell like mold and mildew. So that's what happens when it comes to living the lifestyle of a Dustisha. So that's why I say that your lifestyle actually contributes to your beauty. So remember how I said that like when I quit my job, I instantly lost 5 pounds? That was literally just stress weight and like water weight. Because when I was at work, I used to snack all the time because I was just more stressed. And then I had a lot of deadlines and stuff. So I was always stressed out. I was always behind on some work assignment. So it's like, of course, when I quit that job, I naturally ended up losing weight, which contributed to my beauty, because I was more healthy. So for a lot of Dustishas, they're in an unhealthy environment. They work jobs that are kind of draining to them. So for some women, they don't have the time, they don't have the resources, they don't have the money. Also, some Dustishas, they have no energy. She doesn't even have the energy to stand up and do her hair. She doesn't have the precision or the hand-eye coordination to do her makeup. She doesn't. She has no energy. That's why she's an energy vampire. That's why she tries to drain the energy off of you. It's because her own energy has been drained because she's dealing with a man baby. She's dealing with a man child, or maybe she has her own actual children that she's dealing with. So she's sacrificing her beauty so she can help a man survive. She's sacrificing her beauty so she can help her children or other people survive. She's in survival mode. So that's another reason why some women, they have no reason to be beautiful because they're just trying to survive out here. Beauty is a low priority for her. I've noticed that sometimes women, like, they'll be in a relationship where maybe their relationship isn't focused on looks or like beauty is just not a priority for them. And it's like, okay, that's fine. But don't get mad at me because I chose to prioritize my beauty. And then there are other women who will be like, oh, well, I like how I look just when I wake up in the morning. Okay, so if you truly liked how you looked, then you wouldn't be mad that I look good with makeup. If you truly liked how you looked with no wig, you wouldn't be mad when I wear a wig. If you truly like how you looked as an overweight woman, then you wouldn't be mad when I lose weight. So that's how I know they're lying when they say, oh, I'm content with how I look with no beauty enhancements. Well, no, you're not, because you're getting mad at women who do wear the enhancements. So clearly there's a part of you that secretly wishes you could get away with wearing enhancements. You secretly wish that you could still be pedestalized while wearing the enhancements. You secretly wish that you could lose the weight, or you wish that you had the time to do the hair treatments. You wish you had the time to grow your hair out. That's another thing too with the hair thing. Because in the black community, long hair is extremely pedestalized. I didn't even realize how much of a pedestal the hair thing was until I got on YouTube. So actually, it was black YouTube that inspired me to grow my hair to hip length. So that's my new hair goal, by the way. So at first it was tailbone, but like now that I'm kind of now that my hair is growing more, I'm kind of like, tailbone. I don't know. So maybe I'll just go to hip length. But in the black community, having long natural hair is considered like luxury. That's associated with a luxury lifestyle because it's proof that you either have a lot of time on your hands or you have a lot of money on your hands. Because it really does take one or the other. You got to pick a struggle. When it comes to beauty, you're either going to be investing time or money. So pick one. So if you have a lot of beauty or if you have like long, natural, healthy hair, maybe it's like mid back length, tailbone length, whatever. A lot of women in the black community, they associate that with luxury. Like clearly you have a lot of time on your hands to like do low manipulation hairstyles, or you have a lot of money on your hands to hire someone to care for your hair. Part of the reason why a lot of women are bald headed is because they have to wear wigs to work. Or they're doing all these hairstyles that are not prioritizing the health of their hair. So, they're in a rush. They're in a rush when they're doing their hair. When my edges were the most unhealthy, it was literally when I was working a job. That's when my hair was the least healthy because I was always rushing. Like, okay, let me just brush my hair really quick into a bun. Let me just keep brushing it every day or just keep wetting it every day and stuff. Let me keep piling all these products on it and causing product buildup. So a lot of women, they don't reach their hair goals because their job is literally preventing them from doing that. Or, they're not willing to do low tension hairstyles because they think that the low tension hairstyles are not as pretty. So if you're an exotical and maybe you have like long natural hair down your back, maybe you wear weaves and stuff, and then when you take out the weave, your hair is fucking tailbone. Like there was this one girl actually. I keep bringing up college in this video because I have so many examples. But no, there was this one girl at my college. She was a fellow exotical, and people would talk shit about her, and they would say things like she's not that light skinned. They would call her out for wearing a weave. I remember this girl took out her weave one day. Her hair was literally longer than the weave. She literally had tailbone length 3C hair. So all that shit that everybody was talking, like, oh, she's not even cute, blah, blah, blah. Her hair was longer than all the people that were talking shit about her weave. So I just thought that was interesting because, having that long hair, she basically had the money to be able to keep getting all these different sew-ins or protective styles or whatever. Yeah, I mean, you guys know that I really don't believe in protective styles, but she was able to do low manipulation styles and grow out her natural hair as long as she wanted it to be. But as an exotical, your hair length, so regardless of what hair type you have, the reason that I promote growing your hair out, if you want long hair, I promote growing your hair out as long as possible because I really do think that people pedestalize long hair. I think long hair, if your hair is long and healthy, it does represent kind of having more access to luxury. And then if your hair is short, I think that having your hair be freshly cut all the time, that's another sign of like luxury or having this leisurely type of lifestyle. So, that's why Dusticias get mad. It's because your beauty represents the type of lifestyle that she will never attain. Or she's too lazy to do it. She's too lazy to attain. She's too codependent to leave her living situation. She can't leave her boyfriend. She can't leave her roommates or her siblings or whoever she's living off of because she's too scared. She's a scary ass bitch. It takes courage to pursue beauty. It takes boldness. It actually takes a lot of strength to pursue your internal beauty standard because a lot of people are going to talk shit along the way. Do you know how much shit talking you have to overcome when you are pursuing your version of beauty? And I know I sound dramatic, but like seriously, so many people are going to talk shit. So many people have talked shit along the way when it comes to my beauty journey. People have talked shit about my weight, about how I look, about my styling, whether or not my stuff is expensive enough or whatever. So it's like when you are pursuing your internal beauty standard, you have to overcome a lot of like hate. You have to overcome a lot of jealousy because beauty is a really big jealousy trigger for the Dusticias. Because She was too scared to lose the weight. She was too scared and also too lazy to grow her hair out. She was too neglectful. She neglected her skincare. That's why she's 40 and still has acne. That's why she's 30, still has hella acne. You should not, you have never on this channel, you've never heard me promote having acne on this channel. You will never hear me tell the Exoticals to let your acne stay there. I will never encourage that. I will always tell you, if you have acne and you are an adult, stop everything you're doing, stop buying makeup, stop purchasing the skincare, because the skincare could be fucking you up. Go to the dermatologist immediately. Go to the dermatologist immediately, because something is going on in your body that's causing your skin to purge out all those toxins. Your skin is an organ. Your skin is the largest organ on your body. So if your skin is having all this explosive acne, that means that your liver is already overworked because there are so many toxins. Your liver naturally cleans out the toxins. So you've got so many toxins to the point where your skin is trying to purge out those toxins. Your body is so toxic to where the toxins are trying to come out through your skin. Do you know how much toxins you have to have in your body? Do you know how bad of an allergic reaction you have to be having in your body to have acne that bad as an adult? Do you know how messed up your hormones have to be having bad acne as an adult? You have never heard me promote the Exoticals continuing to have acne. I will never wish that on my worst enemy. I would not wish an adult breakout on my worst enemy. That's how bad that is. That is how urgent that sort of scenario would be for me, because your skin is an organ. I don't know why people neglect their skin. Like, they'll take care of every other part of their body. They want to eat healthy. They want to do all this stuff. They want to take care of their hair. But then when it comes to their skin, which is literally an organ, then suddenly they don't pay attention? No, your skin tells the story of the body inside of it. So if my skin is having allergic reactions or it's having all these rashes and shit, like, because I hear a lot of women with acne, they'll be like, oh, well, I'm allergic to gluten, or my body is inflamed. Okay, so like, is that okay with you? Like, why would I want my body to continue to be inflamed? Why would I view that as not a big deal? If that's not self-neglect, I don't know what is. But a lot of women, they are neglecting themselves. They're too scared. Has anybody noticed in the Black community they discourage you from going to doctors because they think that all the doctors are racist and that you're going to die if you go to the doctors? So you got all these women who are walking around with faces full of acne, and in their culture, you got people in the Black community saying, oh, well, don't go to doctors, well, don't go to dermatologists, they don't know how to deal with your skin, so basically you're just fucked. Basically, they're trying to convince you that you're just screwed and you can't get anything fixed. No. If I had an adult breakout, I would immediately drop everything and I would save up the $100 or whatever for the copay to go to the dermatologist's office. Why would I waste my money on facials and all? No, I need a medical professional. I need somebody to do my blood work. We need to figure out what's going on. Why is my body so inflamed and so filled with toxins to where my body is desperate to get these toxins out? It's being purged through my skin. And for the people who are like, oh, well, it's just allergies. What do you mean it's just allergies? People die from allergy attacks. What are you talking about? So do you see what I mean about the self-neglect? Some people, they come from a culture where it's encouraged for you to be a mule for everybody else. So I'm supposed to slave away at this job. I'm supposed to slave away and break my back in the bedroom over a dusty man. I'm supposed to birth the children of dusty men. I'm supposed to get ripped off by capitalism, but then suddenly when it comes to something as simple as my own organs, aka my skin, now I can't take care of that. Oh, that's not a big deal. Oh, well, that's too much money. Paying $100, paying $500, that's too much money. You pay $500 to go 50-50 on the rent with your dusty boyfriend. What are you talking about? So you're willing to pay $500 to $1,000 to go 50-50 with your dusty white boyfriend, but then you're not willing to pay the same amount of money to fix an organ in your body. Do you hear yourself? So, that's a part of the Dustisha mindset. But what do you ladies think? Let me know in the comment section, and I'll talk to you next time. Stay pretty, ladies.